I'm going to be honest. I have always been an audiophile. I'm obsessed with music. I'm obsessed with sound. I live in London. I live in a townhouse, and I actually have more pairs of speakers in my house than I have rooms. I obsess over the detail of sound quality, and it gives me enormous joy. And so it gives me even greater joy to be able to spend an hour and a half talking about it. And it is my great pleasure to welcome Grace Lowe. Although actually, to be honest, I've been welcomed to KEF, actually, by Grace. It would have felt a bit remiss to record an episode about sound without actually coming to the home of sound here in central London. So it's our first field recording. Grace is the president and head of global marketing at KEF Audio Group, a brand that has spent more than 60 years redefining what it means to listen. Born from its founder's obsession with perfect sound reproduction, KEF has become a global leader in both innovation and design. And Grace has been at the forefront of bringing that vision to life for a new generation, shaping KEF not just as an audio company, but also as a cultural force. We'll be talking about her journey, KEF's founding spirit, as we like to do on this podcast, and also what luxury means when it comes to sound. Grace, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's great to have you.
Thank you very much.
It's great to be here, I should say, actually.
Our pleasure.
Look, can we just talk firstly just a bit about yourself and, what is the career path that led you to KEF?
It's not an extremely exciting one. I've been to a couple of places before joining KEF. One of my first job was in Hong Kong with a telecom company at the time actually introducing the world's first interactive television service to the world at the time. So that got me excited. And originally I was thinking of staying in the US because I study in the US. But that opportunity attracted me. And then subsequently, I stayed in Hong Kong for a while. And then during the years of the first generation of internet boom, I also helped founded internet auction company. With a couple of my colleagues in the previous job, and worked there for a few years until, unfortunately, the internet crashed. And then I started joining Gopi Group afterwards. And in around 2000, I believe 2004 or 5, I started the journey in KEF, starting from basically managing our Hong Kong office, Asia Pacific, marketing, and gradually in my current position.
I mean, there have been a lot of transformations in how sound is delivered over that period of time, haven't there?
Yeah, I think we're driven by basically what's happening in the industry in terms of technology, in terms of applications, how music and content is being delivered. And us as a basically speaker company, we need to adapt to basically what is available in the market, in the application, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, there has been a lot of change during those years. 2000s, I still remember, those were the days where home theater, Laserdisc, and then gradually DVDs, Blu-ray.
Much later, I suppose, I should say.
Yeah. And so that was a big boom during that period for home theater sound systems. And then there was another sort of like gradual evolution into high-end custom install home cinemas, mostly driven by the Americas market. And then gradually, I think around 10 years ago, our brand sees an opportunity. We see an opportunity to make high fidelity more popular again.
Yeah.
And then people were listening to iPods, the trendy ones, the hip ones, and nobody's spending time in basically high quality sound. But we see an opportunity because music streaming services are getting better and better in terms of quality. Wi-Fi is getting, basically the transmission bandwidth is getting more and more stable. There are more technology in digital signal processing. So we believe we have an opportunity to make high fidelity relevant again. but we need to create something different from traditional passive speakers, home theater sound systems. We need to create something that is extremely easy to use. At the same time, very good performance. So that's where we started the journey of developing our LS wireless collection. And we never stopped from there.
How do you, as an organization, navigate the very strong opinions that exist in like a traditionally analog industry like audio? And I think photography is quite similar to this as well. And it's like, it's uncomfortable because it's like, it's taking the irrational choice for a marginal gain, but that marginal gain almost has like it's where the beauty of the sound lives.
Yeah, well, I suppose to answer your question, I think each organization, including ours, needs to be very clear whether you want to stay in a niche or go with the flow. Because there's a progress in evolution and things are moving ahead, no matter whether you change or not. Digital music, wireless transmission, all that kind of technology development are going forward. And people are listening to, back in the days, iPods and now streaming on their phones, this or that. So one can decide whether you want to stay as the purist or you find a way to go with the flow and yet create the best experience out of it.
How has the market changed, since you first started working for the company, and in like the sort of, how's the customer changed actually?
I think digital music and the whole sort of like streaming technology evolution has changed a lot on the role of speakers. In some ways, I think we're fortunate that we're in the sort of like end of the sound delivery chain. Yeah. There's a lot of disruptions in the middle of the chain. For example, the TV now can do a lot of the job of previous components. Okay, a lot of content. Actually, you watch Netflix, it streams from your TV directly, and you just need to plug in a soundbar. Yeah, and some of the other previous generations of equipment are now being displaced. Certainly, some purists would still like the best power amps, preamps, etc. But there are some sort of like integrated amps or AV receivers. Those are basically being displaced.
And I think it's an expression of your individuality, isn't it? There's character in the way in which you put your hi-fi setup together, and there's healthy friction in, putting a record on, making a selection and listening to a narrative with an arc. And it's the irrational path now, because it's so easy to stream music from a streaming service and then transmit it wirelessly to your audio system. There's so little friction that actually you almost have to clutch at straws to find reasons to take the longer path and put the record on. And I think that some of the straws that people clutch onto are this, frankly, at times unquantifiable desire to listen to something that's slightly better. But that slight marginal difference is where the magic lives.
Yeah.
So KEF began 60 years ago in a hut. It's sort of quite funny to think that Raymond Cooke, he was sort of obsessing over you creating the perfect sound reproduction. Now you're a global brand. So how do his values guide what you do today? Do you hark back to his sort of spirit?
Yeah. Well, Raymond is a keen classical music lover, and he's also a very capable engineer. So he was trying to let more people enjoy his passion for classical music using technology. And he wants to reproduce sound in the way like he listens and enjoys basically a concert. So his philosophy has always been KEF as an enabler to reproduce sound as authentic as possible, as if just like the artist intended. Okay? No coloration, no artifacts, the most authentic way. So fast forward to now, that guiding principle still remains the same at KEF. The application, the types of products that we do might be different, but we still try to reproduce sound in the most authentic, honest way. And over the years, we try to come up with new technologies and also leverage new material science and all of that and even including sort of like software, digital signal processing technology to help us basically further improve our sound, making it as authentic as possible. And in some ways, is the philosophy of high fidelity, okay? High fidelity, and in some ways our conversation is about luxury, right? And you asked me once about the meaning of luxury in sound. To KEF, is ultimately about high fidelity and authenticity. So what does that mean, high fidelity? If we break it down in audio terms, it can be clarity, dynamic range, a host of sort of like jargons. Yeah. But ultimately, it's having the most authentic and rich experience. And so back to your original question about Raymond's original value and vision, we are sticking to that 100%. And we're just enriching it further with latest technology, not limited to acoustic, but software and others. And then I would say the past 20 years at KEF, we further enrich basically the brand with the focus in design, in how our products look and feel and being used in people's home. And additionally, for the past 10 years, our really determined focus in driving development and adoption of active wireless music systems.
What's the process to bring a speaker to life?
I think the first thing is determining basically what we want to do first.
Yeah.
And I think there is a lot of like product extension, line extension, update, that sort of like product development. Usually the path is more straightforward. And fundamentally, it starts with benchmarking. Who is our target audience? Who are our target competitors? And what is our target performance? At KEF, I think we have products at different price brackets and for different applications. But we always aim to be the best in class in that category. So from a performance standpoint, we will have a very clear idea and definition on what we want to achieve. Then it's about basically doing it a step at a time, engineering development, and sometimes parallel process in industrial design, engineering development, industrialization for manufacturing, all of that. Those are very standard. But we are also a brand that always try to do something different, redefine the category, bring some new innovation, because innovative product is where we get the maximum share of voice and market share. For the longest time, KEF was not seen as a capable subwoofer company.
Right.
And some of our competitors will even say, oh, we're not a subwoofer brand, we're just a loudspeaker brand. But when we talk to our team and our partners, a subwoofer is a loudspeaker. It just produces more bass than anything else. So we set ourselves a target. We need to make one of the most amazing subwoofers, and we need to break some norms. Subwoofers typically, from a physics point of view, is a combination of size, driver performance, and power. Okay? So typically, a high-performance subwoofers tends to be bigger. Okay? Mm-hmm. But then we also know, actually, people don't really like subwoofers. They're big and clunky. Okay? Unless you are a really, really serious diehard fan, audiophile. So we set out to make...
It also somehow feels like you've decoupled the sound too much, but maybe that's a weird personal thing I have. But whenever I listen to a system with a subwoofer, I always feel that it's been... The sound's been separated into...
Only if the setup is not right.
Fine.
I think it can be integrated in a good way. So we set out to do one of the smallest but big subwoofer in terms of sound, which is the KC62 down there. So the R&D team, in order to break that triangle that I was talking about, size, performance, power. They came up with an idea to a very innovative driver design that fuses two driver almost into one.
Okay.
Yeah, back to back. And it allows us to produce basically very high quality, impactful bass sound in a much smaller cabinet. In fact, it is only the size of a football.
Okay.
Yeah, and that creation, that innovation, in a product development concept is not easy. And typically, when we set out to do something like this, we have an aim, we have an idea, we have a theoretical approach. Then we do simulations, and then we do prototypes. And then, this circles goes round and round until we prove that we can do it. And then it's basically further engineering development and industrialization. At the same time, obviously, we think about the industrial design all along as well. Yeah.
Can I ask, so KEF has built a lot of its identity through audacious moments. You've had a lot of first use of computers and speaker design. You've won the Queen's Awards, reference series standards. How do things like collaborations with artists and cultural institutions today extend that legacy?
I don't think we ever sort of like intended to create audacious moment. I think we always are guided by Raymond's philosophy and our purpose and vision. And we, as a brand, we believe in the magic of Greek sound. And I think we're on a mission and a vision to inspire more people to listen with intent and believe in confidence. And to achieve that, we need to go beyond some of the usual suspects in terms of collaborations and reach out to more people. And creating exceptional performances or experience to inspire more people. That high fidelity is also for them.
Do you have like a terroir? Like, is there a KEF sound that's like a different to Bowers and Wilkins sound, or is it like Fuji and Agfa, or like Kodak and Fuji known for its
Well, I get asked these questions over and over again.
Oh, yeah. I asked a really generic question.
No. But people are very obsessed about this point. Is that a special characteristics, and is one better than the other? I think is what people are obsessed about.
But that's different. Fuji's better for landscapes and amplifies green more than Kodak, which is better for portraits.
I'm
and is more
sure
reddish.
what you are saying, there will be like different arguments for the other way.
But do you know what the reason I think is? Is because I think no one actually wants clean sound. When you buy into something, you almost want to buy into. I feel like you're buying like some sort of like pre-equalized like warmth or coldness or something that's more clinical or something. You're almost like you're buying the hug of the brand in the sound that you hear. Because
I was in a Coldplay concert not too long ago. The sound system setup, obviously for Coldplay, is one of the best in the industry. I also went to a Blackpink concert just a few weeks earlier, and the setup is still very good, but not as good as the one in Coldplay, and in my opinion. And then I went back home and I listened to some of the tracks on my system, and the experience is different. What I'm trying to say here is that I think your point about clean sound or clean sound is not natural comes a little bit from the imperfections in actual live performance.
yeah, fine.
And concerts. But I also find a lot of people enjoy that. I don't want to use the word clinical, but that peaceful, clear sound, accurate sound. I think at the end of the day, which is better at the end of the day is very subjective. But we have a very clear philosophy, and we have been sticking to it for over 60 years, is we want to reproduce sound in the most authentic way and the most accurate way, and reduce all the coloration, distortion as much as possible. Some people might like those distortions, okay? But that would be our...
That brings me to an awkward question, which is, does that mean the higher end the speaker, the less ability there is to differentiate from any high-end speaker? Because like cheap speak, if I have a pair of like mid-range studio monitors that are like reference monitors, I don't find them that nice to listen to. They're good for making music on because you know that it'll probably sound good on most systems afterwards. It's good to master on, And I think that all of my speakers in my house have a different character, but none of them are like super high-end.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the goal is to allow the character of the music to not be inhibited by the character of the speaker, then the best possible speaker, I guess, would be characterless.
Well, I look at, for example, some of our top-end speakers from the Blade to the Reference. The philosophy are the same, but the characters are a little bit different. And depends on your personal preference. You might like, let's remove price out of the equation first. Yeah. They are in close proximity, okay? Yeah. If you are a person that enjoys, for example, vocal more versus someone who enjoys basically more punchy, more energetic rock performance, you might pick one over the other.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think in the higher end, there are still individual characteristics. That's where basically what we're trying to do, for example, in KEF Music Gallery here, is to work together with our partners to empower them to understand those differences a little bit more, and how to help our consumers, not just basically in this showroom, but when visiting our partner stores, to also basically understand how to navigate this. Because at the higher end, there's a lot of subjectivity, okay, and personal choice. And there's industrial design, there is specific preference based on your musical taste. So I don't think, and that's the fun part of it in terms of audio. There's no absolute. But different brands have a different philosophy. If you ask me, I believe our KEF's philosophy is clear and is consistent. Okay. And it's also, as a brand, we see ourselves as an enabler. We enable listeners to appreciate the music as the artist intended. So our philosophy is very clear. If you align with our philosophy, then basically you'll be able to find something that suits your needs.
Can I ask another question about active and passive? It would seem to me that it's irrational to buy a passive speaker versus an active, but I would always buy a passive. If you have a passive with an evenly matched active, I assume the active would be a more expensive speaker because it has to incorporate the premium of the amplifier.
But
would they sound the same?
No, they would not. Okay. Number one, I think when we think of the economics of it, I think comparing just the passive with the active is unfair. You need to include the additional components you need to drive the passive speakers to play sound.
So similarly matched. This is my question.
So
I guess the active might be like double the price of the passive to account, or a higher range, or I guess you'd include a budget for the amp.
I think typically an active speaker with equivalent setup, at least for KEF, you would get actually better performance to value ratio.
From the active?
From the active, because we optimize.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And also
This
from
is the perfect fusion. It's software and hardware working together.
exactly, kind of like the philosophy of
iPhone.
Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah. One might argue that the system is not open, but if you are in love with the system, they are optimized.
Yeah.
So
do you think you will start moving towards active? Because active presumably gives you a much higher degree of a more greater relationship with the customer in a way, because you're then extending the functionality of your speaker, the connectivity of your speaker, the interface, the human, you own the point of interaction between the individual and the speaker itself. So KEF becomes the center of the process rather than it just being, passive.
I think there is a lot of excitement and a lot of possibilities around active speakers, from optimization, producing better performance, to connecting closer to the consumers. But at the same time, like the beginning of our conversation, I believe basically the audio world is not going to switch entirely from one over the other. I think there is a richness and diversity in interests and that I think traditional hi-fi will continue to have its purpose in the industry. So for us, we start from traditional passive hi-fi, and many of our new technologies actually trickles down from some of our flagship products as well in traditional hi-fi into active. So while I believe the general sort of like trend will move more and more towards active wireless, because we have to look at it not just from the base of audiophile customers. I think with active wireless music systems, we have the opportunity to extend, make the market, make the pie a lot bigger. People who traditionally, maybe for simplicity's sake, say, just listen to headphones and maybe basic soundbars or Bluetooth speakers, now they can have the same convenience but a higher fidelity experience. I always believe that when more and more people listen to music, some of them would want better quality. So when a consumer buys our active wireless system, is basically a 5-minute setup, plug and play, connect to your Wi-Fi network, stream from your phone. That's it.
Right.
Yeah. And then from that point on, every single time you want to stream something, you want to enjoy better TV sound, and all of that becomes basically just simple. You don't even actually think about all the things that we need to do to warm up the amplifier, basically turn on multiple machines, make sure the cables wasn't being kicked out by your kids or cat or dog or whatever. I think makes the barrier to enjoy music lower.
What about the speakers' relationship with each other?
You touch on a very interesting point. In fact, one of the barrier to actually making passive speakers much more enjoyable, because it requires some knowledge in setup. Okay, and our trading partners actually help a lot with that to consumers, and these days consumer can learn a lot basically in forums and whatnot. But still, it's something that you need to actively look out to how to do, and be curious about learning to set up. Okay, but the whole active wireless sort of like system design allows for much more easy and smarter room acoustic adjustments. Okay, and there are more things that we're planning in our development to make that journey even more simple for the consumers. Because in a room like this, the speakers plays a big part of the role in terms of the actual performance. But the room itself also plays a very important role. So depends on how you place the speakers or how the room is set up. It can affect the performance dramatically. So how do we make consumers overcome this setup challenge? We ask simple questions on our app to try to understand basically how to set up the speakers in such a way with our DSP technology, digital signal processing technology, can compensate for the room environment. But further down the line, we want to make this process even simpler. Maybe we don't need the consumers to answer those questions. Maybe there are smarter ways of doing that.
Yeah. What sort of annoys you about the audio industry?
I'm going to get a lot of people upset. I think including ourselves. And I'm not just criticizing sort of like our fellow competitors, but as an industry as a whole, I think we can make good sound more understanding and appreciating good sound more approachable. Be a bit more welcoming to new audiences. I think there was a clip that I often use in some speeches. It is a famous, I forgot his name, apologies. Mr. Bean, what's his name?
Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah. There was a famous clip of him playing a hi-fi salesperson. Right. Maybe it was in the 70s or 80s, and trying to make fun of someone who doesn't know about hi-fi walking into a store and trying to buy something.
Yeah.
Of course, the current days, there's a lot of progress already, but there's still a little bit of that, I think, in our industry.
Yeah.
And manufacturers also is not helping by making the products easier to use or making it more approachable. It's not making it less about elitists. I was thinking about this.
Not being charged on how many carat your speaker cable is.
Yeah, well, and there is also a lot of snake oil, honestly, in our industry. And it doesn't help, okay? I was thinking about this as well. At the end of the day, at least what KEF wants to do is to facilitate people to enjoy highest quality entertainment as easy as possible.
Are there things that concern you about listening culture in a plugged-in world?
I think the plugged-in world in general, there is a concern. Well, I have two kids. They're now 13 and 15. And oftentimes they're plugged in, okay? So it reduces interactions. But at the same time, I always think about the flip side as well. The plugged-in world also allows for quite a lot of like solidarity experience that previously is not as convenient, okay? So I've said it many times in our conversation. I think things live in a spectrum. And I think human beings are by nature social animals. I think it's a matter of degree for different people. And after COVID, for example, we see, a few years of lockdown, and then people, after that, the resurgence of concert, music festivals, the number of people flooding into those events, tells us something about it, right? I think plugged in gives us new opportunity. It has its deficiency and it has its social interaction consequences. But at the same time, I think people fundamentally are social, I think. So if I focus only on the dark side, yes, plugged in, there is a lot of negative part of it, but it also has some very interesting elements. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think that listening to music on speakers is social. And I think listening to music on headphones is every day these days. And there's a great beauty that I think is valued less, but even more important in sitting down, not watching something, putting something on, listening to it with someone and silently connecting.
That is very interesting and powerful But at the same time, I am a little bit of an introvert myself as well. So I enjoy my solidarity moment, and I listen to certain music reminiscent about memories and old times while enjoying high quality music on my sound systems.
But that's what I mean. But I think filling a space with sound is quite beautiful, and filling your ears with sound is beautiful for different reasons, you know.
Yes, filling the space with sound, I think that experience is very different from listening to headphones.
But we're a very headphone world these days, you know.
Yeah, but kind of like our conversations about having sometimes passive speakers in potentially in your main listening room, and having some active systems in other rooms. I think what's interesting about audio industry is that there are so many different applications. It's so heterogeneous. Okay, there are different formats, applications, and of systems out there for different purposes. So one cannot say, basically, for example, a Bluetooth speaker is inferior, but well, I can bring it to my camp. So it has its unique purposes at times. I think having that variety and diversity in different ways of enjoying things, I think is good.
The medium suggests a state of mind.
Well, kind of like my earlier conversations about basically slowing down and making a drip cup of coffee instead of something else. The whole ritual and the whole experience, the whole ritual provides a different experience. I completely understand where you're coming from in terms of flipping through the vinyls, and back in the days when I can't believe I actually gave away, not that I have a very huge or a special collection of vinyls, but I gave mine away for real estate.
Yeah.
And
I've been through this, yeah.
Yeah, but that ritual of basically selecting the vinyl, looking at it, basically putting it on the turntable, swiping it clean, putting the needle on, and then basically enjoying the album cover, reading the lyrics, listening to the whole thing. It's a very different experience, I agree.
I mean, there were more vinyls sold in 2015 than in 1985, which is I find quite interesting.
Yeah, I think it goes back to also the whole movement, changes in the society, on the appreciation, on the slowing down, on the trying to get away from sort of like fast fashion, focus on quality, focus on environmental impact, buying less but buying well.
Yeah.
Focus on experience, etc.
I think like it's self-expression and what you value. You know, someone once said that every act of consumerism is an act of self-expression. And I kind of believe that. You know, we don't need any of this stuff. But sometimes when you love something, you want to invest in it in some way, shape or form. And you want to show that it's more than a passing decision. It's something you care about. And buying a record says that. Whether it's just to yourself or to the people around you when you put the thing on. But
And certainly with social media, is now for a lot of people, it's more than just for oneself. It's also expression of their identity. But I think about what excites me, right? In my current journey, or what excites me in general. I think what excites me is innovation, not just from a technology standpoint. Innovation in business model, innovation in ways of doing things. I'm interested in growth, both personally and from a business context. And I'm interested in building a great team. I think my journey ahead will always be focusing around this. So still has a lot to be done at KEF. But if I'm to think about basically what's next, these would be basically things that I think about.
I think that's a great place to end.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.